when party politics started in Nigeria, I became challenged to begin that process. Another reason I went into it was that Igbo people in the First and Second Republic coalesced in the First Republic on the platform of the NCNC because of the stature and the political prominence of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who took over the leadership of the NCNC after the death of his founder, Dr. Herbert Macaulay. And Dr. Azikiwe mobilized the Igbo State Union then and sold NCNC to them. And Igbo people coalesced on it and became politically relevant. Then by the Second Republic, the same thing happened in a sense that Igbo people and by Second Republic we had gone into, the war had come and gone. So Igbo people were busy looking for second-class positions in the parties that existed. In all of the parties, they were going for running mate. Chief Philip Umade was running mate to Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Dr. Alex Ekweme was running mate to Alhaji Shegu Shagari. S.G. Koku was running mate to Malam Aminu Kanu, and so on and so forth. So Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe felt that Igbo people championed the independence, the cause for the struggle for independence, and shouldn't take a second-class position. So he came out of voluntary retirement, because he had said he had retired from partisanship, and joined the MPP. Again, Igbo people coalesced on that platform and became again relevant. So by 1996, Dr. Azikiwe was already old. And of course, it was that year that he also passed. So there was nobody with that type of stature that could join a party founded by other people and dominate it in a sense that Dr. Azikiwe did. So that was the second reason I plunged into it.
Okay.
So in 1996, I made an attempt with some friends who agreed with that philosophy and struggle.
Yes. We
didn't succeed, we failed. At the point of registration at the commission, in the electoral commission. In 1998, we tried again. We also failed. In 2001 to 2002, we did the third time. We were determined, we were resilient. We were not going to surrender. So the third attempt yielded ABGA. So ABGA was then registered in 2002, June 22nd, 2002. So that's ABGA. But in the course of course, Igbo people coalesced on it, on that platform, and we made such impressive outing that in the first outing, when practically every politician had belonged to one party or the other, out of 30 parties that contested the 2003 general election, of course, we had the Modumegwu Ojukwu as a presidential flag bearer, at least, and he became about the only Igbo man of note who was also contesting for president, which was one of our objectives, to make sure that Igbo people participate, even if they lose, but they must fly presidential flag. So the first person we chose was Dr. Azikiwe. Chief D. Modumegwu Ojukwu. And we came third in that election, hoping therefore that subsequently we will improve on that. But unfortunately, crisis set in December, just barely 2 years after the party was founded and formed. The crisis came in, and we were in that crisis for nearly 8 years. So by 2012, I took a decision that we were no longer going to be knocking our head against the wall. Let's leave the party for those who hijacked it, as it were, and look for another one with the same philosophy, with the same vision. So we founded the UPP.
UPP, yeah.
Now, I didn't set out to make that history, but when UPP was founded and registered, it dawned on me that I had now belonged to another class of eminent Nigerians who founded two political parties in their lifetime. In our class of 4 people, Chief Obafemi Awolowo was our prefect, who founded the Action Group and the UPL.
UPL.
And then Malam Aminu Kano founded NEPU and the PRP. Alhaji Waziri Ibrahim founded MPP and GMPP. So my humble self founded ABGA and UPP. And by the special grace of God, I'm the only one of the 4 still alive.
Okay, you did mention of a number of failures, at least 2.
Yes.
What brought about those failures of registration? You did mention you tried to register.
Yes, there was conspiracy.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it's an interesting question he asked. We tried to build that formation around the Modomego Ojukwu, believing that it was the symbol of the Igbo struggle in Nigeria. And we were trying to re-engage Nigeria politically. But unfortunately, those on the other side, when I say the other side, the political class, existing political class, and the entire military class, saw the Modomego Ojukwu. They had this morbid fear that if he was allowed to gain any foothold politically, that he was going to reenact the Biafran struggle. Whereas there was no such intention. And Modomego Ojukwu made it clear several times while he was alive that he would not advise his people to go into another war. But that fear remained. So we were denied registration even when we met the requirements. So by the 3rd attempt, we kept him at a distance. And when we were moving on, we were underrated. So nobody put the obstacles. And then when we were eventually registered, and we brought back the Modomego Ojukwu to fly, the fear was reinstated. As a matter of fact, ABGA was described as a national security issue within the presidency of President Olusegun Obasanjo. I say this on television because I've also written it in a book. So it's not something that...
What's the name of the book?
ABGA and the Igbo Question.
Okay.
So those were the reasons we found out that led to our failure, because we met all the requirements. We would have been registered the same time with AD, but later we were registered. By the time we were registered, there were 33 associations that applied. 3 were registered. And those 3 were ABGA, NDP, and UMPP.
Okay. So what about UPP? Is it functional now? Or
no, UPP became defunct based on a new rule that INEC brought up, that any party that did not win election, even at the level of state assembly, will be deregistered. And if Nigerians will remember, 94 political parties were deregistered in one fell swoop. We were surprised that we were included, but be that as it may, we didn't want to challenge it. We accepted it and decided to move on. And of course, here I am now, back in ABGA.
Okay.
And now I'm the chairman board of trustees of ABGA under the leadership of Chief Edozie Njoku as national chairman, recognized by the Supreme Court and also recognized by INEC.
Okay, you had a running mate, Hajia Hadiza Mohammed.
That's right.
What's informed that decision?
Well, first of all, of course, the general arrangement is that if you have a presidential candidate from the south, your running mate will come from the north. That's number one. Number two, we were also determined to give women that opportunity. Okay. And she was also a very, very respectable woman from a very good background. Her pedigree was impeccable and well educated and all of that. So we were really happy and proud to have her to run with me on that ticket. But then that ticket also suffered a major setback, because at that time the dispute in ABGA was still raging, and we didn't have the recognition of INEC, even though we already had the Supreme Court judgment in favor of Chief Edozie Njoku. So, but we went on and on, eventually got INEC to comply. But then election had come and gone. So we didn't quite fly.
Okay, so because I want us to move into our topic, but you know, there is some juicy thing around ABGA, and it will be failure on my part not to just talk about it a bit. Despite your approaches that you made to you and Chief Njoku as well made to the governor of Anambra State, Soludo, you know, for peace to reign in the party, there seemed to be some kind of a bit of crisis, you know, and you did mention about the party being sabotaged at some point. So is it still the same thing running, or has this been resolved?
Well, this time is no longer an external sabotage. This is basically internal.
Yeah.
But at the point I returned to ABGA, Professor Soludo had become governor-elect. He hadn't been sworn in. And I went to him because he's still my friend. We have come a long way as friends. So I went to him and I said to him, now you've been elected and you will soon be sworn in. This crisis that I returned and met, you can resolve it. You were not there when this whole thing started. You are not part of it, so you can play a major role. And by being the highest elected member of the party, you have become the de facto leader of the party. So take that leadership role and bring this to chairman, contending chairman, to the round table and resolve it. We thought we had a good discussion, but somehow he didn't quite take that advice, and so the struggle continued. And while the struggle was going on, it doesn't joke himself, myself, of course, as you really pointed out here, the whole Nigerian public will attest to our several stretching of hands of fellowship to him, but he was determined not to recognize Edozie Njoku, because it's not me that requires his endorsement. I'm already the founder of ABGA. There's nothing like former founder. Even if I die tomorrow, it's still part of my history. So I didn't need anybody to endorse me on that one. And I've been chairman 22 years ago, so I have no intention to be chairman again. So, in fact, the only addition is that the Edozie Njoku leadership now named me chairman board of trustees. Of course, for me to continue perhaps serving in advisory capacity, which I believe is more befitting than being actively involved in administration of a party at my age. So I still continued with that approach for peace, but unfortunately the governor had again his fears. And I can tell you the fears I suspect that he has, because otherwise I see no reason. He has no personal conflict with Edozie Njoku, but he supported his own faction with everything that he could muster as a governor.
Okay.
So now, remember when he wanted to be governor on the governorship candidate on the platform of ABGA, he made an attempt. He met all the requirements, having been governor of Central Bank, having been the one-time governorship candidate of the ruling party, then the PDP. There was no way he was not eminently qualified to contest for the primaries of ABGA to either win the primaries or lose. But for reason nobody could fathom, the then chairman of the party, Chief Victor Ume, disqualified him, and 5 other people. So that shocked him a lot, and we discussed about it most times we met. And his own worry was that if the former chairman of the party had allowed him to participate in primary election and he rigged him out, it would have been better than disqualifying him, with screening him out. And his connections, his contacts, home and abroad, were asking him, what crime did you commit in your country that you are disqualified? And that embarrassed him a lot. So I think that fear remained in him, that if he didn't do anything to Victor Ume and he treated him that way, now that he fought Edozie Njoku and eventually Edozie had won, we will, if he fell for our hand of fellowship, that he will be falling into a trap already set there. Whereas we had, myself, I can vouch for myself, And I know Edozen Njoku as a quintessential gentleman, well brought up, good background. We never think of any such vendetta.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he still remained recalcitrant, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. So we're moving ahead. We're
is-
still waiting for him, though.
Yeah.
Until, as we speak, we're still waiting for him.
Because still on the governor, Professor Soludo, people could be asking, what's this with him saying that he would tear down at APGA? And does it have anything to do with Chief Victor Oye? Knowing that, does it have anything to do with Victor
Oye?
Oye.
Oye.
Yes.
Well, he inherited actually Victor Oye because he wasn't the one that sponsored Victor Oye to become chairman. The emergence of Victor is a different thing. One of the APGA was definitely, when I returned, even though I was watching APGA from a close distance. But when I returned, APGA was hardly what we knew it to be. So the party had been terribly bastardized, and a lot of terrible things happened. But however, he didn't inherit. He inherited Oye. He didn't bring about Oye. But as Oye was leaving, he now brought his own special assistant, and whom he had already appointed special assistant. This somebody called Sly, and he brought him and said he had become chairman, and they were going to hold a convention to name him chairman. And the court stopped them because the matter was still raging in court. They get a clear order that that convention should not hold. And they went ahead and held it. And the party went for a contempt charge. And he continued to protect this Sly. So it's not really Oye now, because Oye had done his own and gone. This is boy that he thinks that if he became chairman and confirmed the chairman, that he will be more comfortable with that. I think that is his own mindset.
Okay.
But eventually, that convention was nullified by court, and even Oye himself that went ahead and had that convention, he still has a contempt sentencing because he had already been found guilty of contempt of court. It is the sentencing that is been adjourned to October this year.
Okay.
And nothing will stop that sentencing from coming. That means he has his day. He will have his day in the correctional center at the due date.
Okay. So, well, moving forward, what's the future of APGA? Is there hope for peace? Because I want to believe that there could be other people who are looking at joining APGA.
Yeah.
With the emergence of some other parties tearing down. What's the future of APGA? Is there hope of peace?
Yeah. There's great hope for peace. Very great hope. Because the whole essence of they coming back, to me, it was a very emotional meeting when Edozen Njoku led a large contingent of over 120 party leaders to my residence in Enugu to beg me to first of all apologize to me for the wrong done to me by the party, not by themselves, and begged me to come and join them to rebuild this party. Of course, they had in mind that my coming in will bring back all of those who left the party as a result of what they saw as an injustice. And it will also bring back so many people who never at the beginning thought that APGA would be a major force to be reckoned with. Many of them are coming. It will also help to cleanse APGA of the bad image that was given to it when it became more like a nest of fraud, where many people were scammed, people's money collected for primary election, and those elections never held.
Yes.
And they knew that when we were there, no such thing ever happened. So there is great hope. There are two things we have in the pipeline immediately. The first one is an interdenominational service here in Enugu. Because when APGA was registered, in 2002, there was an interdenominational service to dedicate APGA to God at Nnamdi Azikiwe Stadium.
Okay.
Yes, in Enugu here. So and when I was coming back, I gave it as a condition that if God gave us APGA back, that the first thing we'll do before I get fully involved in the field to help remobilize people is to return to God, seek his face, ask for forgiveness where we ever went wrong,
Okay.
and rededicate the party to him.
Okay. And has that been done?
Yes, we are already working on it. Sometime in October, we'll announce the date. Okay. I mean, we announce the date, but it will be in October by the grace of God. Once that is done, the second thing is to call a reunion meeting, mostly at Abuja, because ABGA is a national party. And that reunion meeting will now bring in leaders, those who can afford to come on behalf of those who can't afford to come to Abuja, who were there before, or those who are in different factions in the process, and those who want to be part of the new movement. That again will be done, and the party will spread. I can assure you, before the end of this year, December, which is just around the corner, if you mention 3 or 4 parties in Nigeria, ABGA must be mentioned. Okay. I said this because I have watched ABGA go off the radar for a long time. Nobody even talks about it anymore. But we are back now. ABGA is back.
Okay, thank you so much for that exposition. Because a lot of people actually thought that Dim Odumegwu Ojukwu was the founder of ABGA up until now. For some people that didn't know before. Thank you once again. Yeah. Well, moving on with Igbo Nation and the search for leadership. Yes. There is a saying that says Iwenweze.
Yes.
That Igbos don't have leaders.
Yes.
They can't be led. They're more like Republicans,
yeah.
What some people want to say. Yeah. Can you walk us through the historical and cultural context of the Igbo people, how they shape their leadership aspirations and challenges?
Yeah. I will start this way with what said the popular cliche, Iwenweze.
Yes.
I start from there. When the Odumegwu Ojukwu was alive, because I was associated with him for about 22 years, okay. From the time he came back from exile in 1982 till 2004 when the ABGA crisis started. Okay. So 22 years we were closely associated. Very, very closely associated. So, when this Iwenweze thing was everywhere, yes. And we had a big Igbo leadership meeting, Ohaneze meeting, he said that Igbo people have Eze. They respect their leaders. But what we do not have is Eze. It's the same spelling, Eze and Eze.
Yeah.
So, when we're Eze, that means we don't even have teeth to bite. But as for Eze, we have Eze. Okay. So he was not calling for us to be able to stand up for what is our own, what is due to us, instead of hiding under Iwenweze to deny ourselves certain things that joint leadership will attract on the Igbo. Having said that, Igbo people are Republican in nature. I will tell you that the day God created Igbo was the day he created democracy. No ethnic group has been known to be more democratic than the Igbo people. So right from the very beginning, from the rural setting, from the primitive years, if you like, Igbo people have their own way of arriving at decisions. And they have their own way of identifying leadership. In those days when we were not talking in terms of big money, billion, this and that, political positions, if you are a great farmer, that means you work very hard.
Yes.
You are respected for being a great farmer. In fact, some people will call you Ezeji, the king of yam, because yam is the chief crop in Igbo land. If you are an orator and you come and there is a situation where people will require to be carried along, inspired, motivated, and they know that once you are given the stage, you have that capacity to motivate people to action. They are respected in that regard. If you are a great wrestler, you are relied on for wrestling contests to bring laurels back to your community or your kindred. These are areas. So there was no, Igbo people didn't have a situation where if you are from a particular family, certain royalty like we see in many of their films these days, Nollywood and all of that. Those things didn't exist in those days. You say this one is royalty, you begin to bow and throw flowers when the person, these things watch. They never existed. Igbo people attained whatever position by dint of hard work and honesty. So now, that was, so when the decision is to be taken, and Igbo people have a proverb, that if I say something and you don't like what I have said, you can throw away what I have said, but don't throw me away.
Yeah.
And that gives the person who is going to contribute in a meeting, we have laid the foundation for him to say what he has to say. He say his mind.
Yeah.
And sometimes his mind may be taken. That is how recruitment or leadership had begun in Igbo land. And they continued all the way to political period. I give you one example. In those days when elections were conducted based on the sovereign rights, the inalienable rights of the electorate to vote, people, the right kind of people were being elected into offices. In the First Republic, during the parliamentary period, Dr. Alex Ekweme was the candidate of NCNC for Agwata Federal Constituency.
Yeah.
But when the election came, a retired school teacher, a headmaster who had retired, but was popular in the area, he contested as an independent candidate in that Agwata Federal, and he defeated a candidate of a ruling party like NCNC, and that is Igbo for you. Again, in Enugu State, where Enugu was then under Udi province, a man from Sokoto State, called Alhaji Umaru Altine, who had been just a few years in Enugu and lived with his family. But because of the way he related with the people, he became the candidate of NCNC and won to be the first mayor of Enugu. A Sokoto man. Our people were not looking at where he came from, whether he was a Muslim or not. Of course he was a Muslim. But they felt that this person will represent them very well. In the next election, the party felt embarrassed. The party felt embarrassed that somebody from that area, party, not Igbo people, they denied him nomination. He ran as independent candidate and won again. That's where people's vote counted. So leadership in Igbo land is recruited through democratic means. But unfortunately, we now got to a point where miscreants, rogues, all manner of characters were imposed on the people, and so mutual leadership derailed. However, we have Ohaneze. Ohaneze came after immediately the war ended. The leaders of the Southeast, the former Eastern region, not just Igbo people in the former Eastern region, decided to come together to look at the cost, what we lost as a result of the war, how to regain it, and an Igbo forum was formed in 1976. I was already an undergraduate then. I was brought into Ohaneze then, when it was called Igbo Forum, but became Ohaneze in 1979. 1976, by 1979, the name changed to Ohaneze. We had to join Ohaneze at that time. You needed to be screened and confirm that you have integrity. And Dr. Azikiwe was our patron. He was the first and only patron of Ohaneze ever had. Our chairman was, then we had chairman, not president general, was Dr. Kamibiam. We had Justice Dadi Onyama, who had just returned from The Hague as judge of the World Court at The Hague, as the vice chairman. And Chief Jerome Udoji was secretary. And this and my uncle, Mr. J.U. Agu, who actually brought me into the Ohaneze, was the assistant secretary. He was a permanent secretary during the Eastern regional government under Okpara. So these are the caliber of people. People from Ikwere, people from Ndoni, all the Igbo people in Rivers State, they had their leaders part of that. Ohaneze. We had Chief Eze Wonodi, we had Dr. Binwale, we had Eze Woluchem, we had Muche, Chibudo Muche's father, Muche. And so many of them Senator Francis Ella, they were all coming from Rivers to attend meeting here in Enugu. So Ohaneze became the umbrella body. And let me also drop this piece of history.
Yes.
Of that 1976 class of Ohaneze, I'm the only one alive today. I'm the only one alive today.
Amazing.
Yeah. So there is, that's why I said the question he asked was very interesting, because I've seen all of these things pass from childhood. Of course, I'm also from a royal family. My father was traditional of my town. So I saw these things from the traditional point of view to now we are in this deplorable state. But we are back, getting back. When Chief Iwanya, may his soul rest in peace, was there, we agreed that Igbo people should not participate in this whole national protest, because at the end of the day, they'll become scapegoats. So the Labour Congress then planned a shutdown. And Chief Iwanya spoke the mind of the Ohaneze, and of course the mind of Igbo, and said Igbo people should stay back so that they don't become scapegoat at the end of the day. And Igbo people did not participate, notwithstanding that an Igbo man was president and still president of Nigerian Labour Congress. So by the time this other protest came, although the Chief Iwanya had passed, his directive subsists. And so nobody participated. And today, we are not counting dead body, we are not counting all of these things. So what does that mean to us? It means that Igbo people now respect leadership. So we are returning to the good old days. So I just hope that we will continue in this trajectory.
So, but it would be completely wrong not for me not to keep drawing from this well of encyclopedia and talking about ethnic profiling.
Yes.
I will still go on with the Igbo Nation and search for leadership. However, how did we get to the point of ethnic profiling?
It's difficult to explain. From the simplest way to put it is that it's born out of envy. It's born out of jealousy. It's not rooted on anything Igbo people have done particularly to hurt anybody. Because from 1953, really, and by the way, that was the year I was born, so I'm 71 now. From 1953, Igbo people had become victims of sectarian and even religious conflicts that they had nothing to do with them. They will find a way to draw them into it. Even when the military had a military coup in 1966, they branded it an Igbo coup. When a majority of those who led the coup were not Igbo people. So this is what has been happening. When the war ended, the government of Nigeria, as far as I'm concerned, and I continue to say this, the war really ended, the fratricidal war ended in the field, but the war continued by other means. And which other means? The entire West African Sea, the coastal ports, that's right. The coastal ports down to from Warri to Port Harcourt, One, and going down the coast were abandoned by deliberate policy of government. And what did our people do? They decided, because these are basically traders, again, who are even denied, even after they have gone to school, they are denied juicy employment. Those who are employed, they had a glass ceiling for them. You get to a certain point, they retire you, whether in the army or in the civil service. So you see young people coming out of some of these services, returning to trading. And where could they trade? There was only Tinkan Island and Apapa Pos. There were only Tinkan Island and Apapa Pos. So they went there, started their trading, and of course people migrated towards there. And before you knew it, there was now this population explosion in Lagos State. And the same people who prevented our people from staying in their home to make their money were now afraid of any attempt to take over their land. Yet Nigeria keeps hurting themselves by these their obnoxious policies. I can tell you, before the war, Aba was a commercial hub for East African countries, from Niger to Congo to Kenya and Cameroon, they were coming to Aba to buy. Onitsha was the commercial hub for West African countries, including Nigerian states like Yoruba people going down to Togo, Ghana, Ivory Coast. They were coming to Onitsha to buy. And made in Aba product had been existing even before I was born. It continued to improve in terms of quality and exportability. And these things also, these were the things that were targeted after the war. So now, we are saying, instead of making profiling Igbo people, making them targets for every little thing that will brew in any community, even matrimonial home quarrels have been blamed on Igbo people. So why not reopen these seaports? Give 10 years. After reopening all these people, Lagos will be a ghost of itself. I've said it before. Just every Christmas, Igbo people on their own volition decide to go home to celebrate with their loved ones. Lagos will shut down. And the same people who want Igbo people to leave Lagos will be begging them to cut down their vacation and return life to Lagos. So what type of hypocrisy is that?
Okay, how have the, you talked about the war. How have the experiences of the Nigerian war impacted the Igbo psyche and their approach to leadership?
Well, there's something that Dr. Zikiwe told us several each time he attended our Ohaneze meeting as a patron. He always reminded us, and he was never tired of repeating it each time, that the worst thing that will happen to a race that lost a war is the loss of self-esteem. And to recover the lost self-esteem will take several decades of conscientious, focused leadership. That conscientious, focused leadership has not actually been achieved. And so this loss of self-esteem is still the bane of Igbo people, even in the area of trying to find new leaders that we could trust. But one of the lessons of the war is that you lose practically everything in war. You gain nothing. You lose human beings, you lose the positions you were occupying before, you lose your property, wealth, and at the end of it, you still return to the negotiation table. All wars end on the table from history. So we have learned that one in a very bitter manner, and decided that there are other ways we can assert ourselves and engage the country in a more meaningful manner than engaging in war. And that is why we were startled and really thoroughly embarrassed by the anger of some of our youth who opted to apply violence to get us out of Nigeria. But I think over time, in spite of the heavy losses recorded, we are beginning to come back to terms that the political means is our best bet.
Yes.
And that the ABGA is that political party for engagement with the rest of Nigeria. And that is what we are going to reintroduce, because it was a movement. We used to call it a spirit. It's going to come back after we have obtained the blessing of God a second time. This is a second chance to resume the movement and use it for engagement and to assert ourselves without firing a shot.
Okay.
We have, let me tell you, there is no state in Nigeria who don't have at least 25% of the voting population that is Igbo. No state. You can count those who are 40%, 30%, 99%, like in the southeast, but there's none. Even the remotest states, the smallest state, has at least 20%. So when you have this enormous spread and number, all you need to do is to arouse their political consciousness to use their votes. Their AK-47 is that vote. Use it, and you gain respect. Look at what happened at the P2B movement, the obedient movement. Who would have thought that an Igbo man would come and win presidential election in Lagos with such, in fact, with far more number of votes that he was accredited to, and so on and so forth, in order places. So this is, look at Abuja. Igbo people have 75%, no, well, let me say more than 50% of the voting population in Abuja. And what happened? Not just that there's only Igbo people who voted for Peter, but he got 58%, such that his closest rivals couldn't make 25%. That is the power of your number if you apply it wisely and politically.
Okay, it's getting more interesting, very interesting. We need to take some voices, and we'll be right back.
Most of our leaders, the Igbo leaders, because what they want is just for their pockets. They don't think about the others. So, and we Igbos, we are hardworking, we are strong, and anywhere we go, we like to show that yes, we are there. But the problem among us is we don't trust each other. You will see, so we see an Igbo man now trying to sell his own brother just for the money, which is very bad. So assuming we all come together as one, we will make Igbo land work better again.
The Igbo doesn't have a leader, because if you have money, you're a leader. That's the passion, that's the expression in Igbo land. No matter how old you are or how mature you are, if you don't have something to bring to the table, your voice can go out. But if you have money, the money speaks for you in Igbo land. But if that can be corrected, at least the youth will hear from the leaders, the young one will hear from the leaders. But because of money now, they don't want to hear from the elders. And at least if they can humble themselves, hear from the elders, they will give them the past experience. So they won't repeat the mistakes that the elders will repeat it.
In Igbo land, they doesn't regard, they assume that everybody is equal. They doesn't say this person is this or this person is that. They assume that everybody is the same. It has done so many things in Igbo land to the extent that people doesn't regard the person they're supposed to regard, to give regards to or to give respect to because of that adage. And it has caused so many things in Igbo land.
We Igbos, because I'm an Igbo, we don't, like, I don't know how to explain it, understand? So we do whatever we decide to do based on our own, alright? Based on the protest now. Nobody asked us not to do protest, not to protest. But we agreed to not to protest, understand? So I believe that we are not allowed to be ruled by any tribe or whatever. We are the king of our own.
I will agree and disagree also with it. The reason why I say so is the Igbo race is a signified and well-organized region and an independent region that does not actually believe in a particular person to make things right. Unlike other regions like maybe the northern or the western region, you get the Igbo region, they believe in work hard to yourself. You get that doesn't mean we don't have a leader. We still have a leader we submit to. We have in the Igbo race, we have the Igwe. We have the Igwe cabinets. That's the cabinet of the Igwe. And these people, they help in deciding what we do traditionally. You get? Then when you come in terms of government, the Igbo race comprises of the southeastern states, which we have our governors just like the West have. We have our senators just like the West and the South have. So if there is anyone saying that Igbo, meaning that Igbo does not have leaders, it's a propaganda to me. I don't. I say it's a propaganda and it's an accusation on us, which we don't know about that.
Well, Igbo is Igbo land. Everybody knows that in Igbo land, everybody is their own man. Do you understand? Igbos, we are not used to being too submissive. We always like enjoy being our own boss. Do you understand? So, but regardless, within us, we usually have somebody that stands out. somebody that all of us collectively will come out and say, we want this person to represent us. We want this person to like speak for us. Do you understand? So that is it.
Igbo is derogatory. It's a propaganda against the Igbo race. Normally, right from time, Igbos don't have a king. If you come to an Igbo community and are having a meeting, what you have is the eldest man in the community. After that, you have a council of chiefs. And then this titled man is either you're a great wrestler, or you're a farmer, or you're a dancer. These are the ranking of leadership in Igbo land. Then every married man has a right to come to that meeting and air his opinion. So you don't come and then you say, like up north or down west, where the emir or the oba will have to tell everybody what they have to do. No. I once interviewed late Justice Oputa, and he said, if you want an Igbo man to follow you and trek to Kana, you have to convince him. That's because he has an independent mind. It's not like who will say, oh yes, man, but everything goes. It's not for the Igbo man. So when you say Igbo Enwezi, it does not mean we don't have leaders. It's just that we are independent minded.
Voices. But before we get back to them, talking back to the first thing you said, how can how can the people actually leverage on their entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial spirit and economic prowess to build a strong political base?
Well, the major impediment to achieving that politically is the method that is being used now to recruit political or elected people to represent us at all levels.
Yes.
That's why I am also very passionate about the electoral reforms. I began to canvass for electronic voting system since 2012. Okay. I did memos, I did also some documents passed on to the government of President Jonathan at the time, and all the National Assembly people and all of that, and in public media. And there have been little attempts to amend, but it's not been quite a whole scale. So if we are able to give the Igbo man or the Nigerian electorate his power to decide who represents him, now he will have confidence in the electoral process. He will be able to say who he wants to be his councillor, his House of Rep, and so on. And once that is done, then the issue of leadership recruitment will have been solved. And then we'll hold the person accountable for what he has promised or want him to go and do. Or we have the right, we know that we have the right, and the person knows that we have the right to vote him out in the next round of election. So it is basically on the basis of the electoral system we are working on. Like everybody knows, every Igbo man knows, that nobody is, everybody is equal, but we have leaders. Because, like what I said, when the day God created it, we created democracy. It's there in the Bible. We are all equal before God. But the same Bible says, pray for your leaders. That means the Bible recognizes the role of leadership. But how do those people become leaders is the critical thing we have to solve.
Okay, so what role can Igbo women play in shaping the future leadership of Igbo nation?
Igbo women are very critical, right from the traditional era up till now. Igbo women are the most powerful when it comes to determining what behaviors, etiquettes, conduct, even in the rural area. And don't forget, it was Igbo women, of course, this time led by Mrs. Ekbo, Margaret Ekbo, in 2029, that rose against certain obnoxious policies that affected women at the time. I mean, it affected everybody, including women. So Igbo women have been at the forefront in reshaping society. If you are in a community and you are behaving in a manner that is not acceptable, the daughters of that community who are even married to other places, the Umuada, they will come back and put you to call you to order. And you dare not challenge the Umuada. They are so powerful that when they curse you, you are finished.
Oh, really?
You know, so women, we don't joke with our women. We don't. Because most times, they are not influenced by any other thing other than high principles, high morality, and what the society demands.
Okay.
So, we'll tell you, but in politics, it becomes a different ball game in the sense that there is too much this struggle and all of that thing. But once you get Nigerians, Igbo people in particular, to elect their people, you will see the number of women that will be elected into office because you start proving yourself right from the time you become a teenager, growing up, how you respect people, how you interact, how you are obedient to even your own parents. All those things are observed and kept. When you ask to be given certain higher responsibilities, people will not say because it's a woman, he will not go. Most women who have been given higher responsibilities have discharged that creditably. No, there are a few bad eggs, but there are still more in number who are reliable and dependable.
Yeah, talking about the fact that a lot of times when we sit on the sideline, people say, once I get there to that position, I'm going to, man up and cause some changes. But in that regard, to what extent has the Igbo political class effectively represented the interest of the Igbo people?
They have not, up till this moment, done that satisfactorily. Because again of how they even went to that position. They were imposed. They were not elected. We have not had a true election for a long, long time. We have not. So, a few who try to stand up against certain malfeasance in the society have been branded in a particular manner, and they often lost out. But the answer remains: give the people the right to choose the leader. Because you see, when you have a bad leader, generally it is said, this is the leader that the people have deserve. But you will only be the leader the people deserve if it's the people that put you there. So I still come back to the method of leadership recruitment. For as long as somebody knows that it is one money bag somewhere or one notorious killer who can kill everybody and pave way for you that they put you there, you are only accountable to that person and not to the people. Mm-hmm. Who will believe that there were Igbo people in the government of PDP for 16 years, that PDP was in power, and they were in very powerful positions, in quotes. And as I speak to you today and to the public, there is not a single federal project started and completed in the whole of Igbo land for the whole of the 16 years. I have challenged all of them, whether they are our ministers or SGF or whatever name called, to point at one, not one. And I'm saying this publicly. If anybody knows anywhere what project that was completed in Igbo land for the whole 16 years, we were in a ruling party, should point it out. So we had senators, we had House of Rep, we had ministers, but how did they get there? And so they didn't care about us. So we must return to leadership recruitment model.
So what role can education and skill development play in producing the next generation of Igbo leaders? Very
critical, especially for people like Igbo, people who are very, very conscious of education, who are very conscious of a modern education, which you now call technology. And we have people who have been trained every day. I think in Nigeria, it's no saying that we have the highest number of technologically educated young men and women. But many of them, go looking for a way to survive on their own, starting what they call startups and all that to be able to survive. Many of them are making it, but there must be a deliberate government policy and policy implementation to drive that. And I can also say here that just recently, within this this present dispensation, there have been a synergy between the leadership of our nation and our governors. And there have been a joint, what I call collaborative committee to be able to develop a blueprint for the development of Igbo people wherever they may be, not just Igbo land, in all dimensions.
Okay.
And there must be a credit I will give to President Tinubu here, because what we do is where you have done well, we credit you with what you've done. In 2017, a young man, a member of House of Representatives, called Chuka Onyema from Obaru Federal Constituency, came up with a bill to have a Southeast Development Commission enacted. That bill did not pass after the first reading. It did not survive the second reading to be thrown out. Now, under this President Tinubu, we now have our son, who is the Deputy Speaker, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu. He raked up that bill, dusted it, expanded it, retouched it, mobilized the Igbo members of House of Representatives, and they lobbied, because they are in minority, they lobbied their colleagues, and that bill was expeditiously passed.
Okay. And
they went to Senate, where we have Senator Akpabio as president of the Senate. He also, and the Igbo people there too, handled their own part, which was just to concur. Okay. And the President Tinubu did not hesitate, after going through other processes of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, to sign it into law. Okay. So we are waiting now. And what is that commission to do? To address all the infrastructural deficits resulting from the Civil War. Okay. So all of those things will help us to get the generation of leaders who are equipped to lead.
Thank you so much. Wrapping your thoughts. What is the future of the Igbo nation? How can it be realized?
We have great future. I've already given you here the signposts that we have great future in Nigeria. In fact, we of going to any. In fact, anybody wanting to leave Nigeria should not be Igbo, should be any other person. Okay. Because you can't come to a country as big as Nigeria. You already have 1/4 of the population, voting population in all the states of the federation, and you aim at federal. But you can't impose yourself on the nation that we are not going to force. But once we are politically united, when that political consciousness is what people like us have been done and will continue to intensify until we do our own bit and hand over the baton. What are the greatest gift God will give me to be alive to see an Igbo man become president? You see, for the first time, President Tinubu gave an Igbo man chance to head the minister, Engineer Dave Umahi. People felt that he did magic state. But there is a near revolution in the road infrastructure going on now. That young man has never rested. He's moving from one corner of the country to the other. You give a man a challenge. You can sleep with your 2 eyes closed. So we are going to recover and take control of our space in Nigeria.
Thank you. It's been an amazing time we spent with you. Drawing from your experience, it's a privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you. You are a living encyclopedia. Like you did mention, you had several others that were with you. They are no more right now. But you are still existing.
By the grace of
and by don't walk 71. Thank you so much. Chief Dr. Chekwas Okorie, the founder of APGA, All Progressive
Grand Alliance,
PP. And I think the past, yes, I'm not thinking. He's a presidential candidate of All Progressive Grand Alliance. Much that.
You're welcome. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Yes. And up next, Still on Signature Morning on TV is Financial Update.